Fresh is the word.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Fresh is the Word podcast. I'm your host, Kelly K. Fresh Frazier. And like always, we have the freshest of guests for you. The guest for this episode is lead vocalist Jesper from the Danish Metalcore outfit Ghost Iris. They just released their latest full-length album, Comatose, via Long Branch Records. During our conversation, we talked about the movies he's currently watching, the making of Comatose, the recording process, going back to old ideas, what they did better on this album, how he writes and collaborates with his bandmates, the music he listens to currently, his hip-hop background, and the music scene out there in Denmark. So, after a quick word from our sponsor, let's get into this interview with Jesper from the Danish Metalcore band, Ghost Iris. Before we start this podcast, I want to definitely remind you of a sponsor for Fresh of the Word, 20 by 20 Apparel. Founded in 2015, 20 by 20 Apparel brings original tributes to pro wrestling's classic arenas, moments, and events. They look to spotlight the bloopers, bleeps, and body slams along with the biggest, smallest, strangest, and strongest. In the world of wrestling where there's hundreds of shirts, promotions, flyers, social media accounts, and ads, don't get lost in the sea of parody shirts and display fonts. They can provide professional graphic design services at a reasonable price. 20 by 20 also hand screen prints all the tees in-house. So if you'd like to discuss a possible run of tees, posters, koozies, foam fingers, or even Zubaz, then drop them a line at 20by20apparel.com. That's the number 20x, the number 20apparel.com. And also check out their enamel pin line. It's super cool. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Fresh is the Word podcast. And like always, we have the freshest of guests for you. And joining me today is Jesper, the vocalist for the band, the metalcore band Ghost Iris. They're from Denmark. They got a new album out called Comatose. And it's a killer album. So let's get into talking, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. The weekend just began. Off work and all that good stuff, and there's some ice cream in the fridge I'm gonna enjoy later while watching a good movie, so
all right.
I'm doing great. I
Ice
can't
cream.
complain.
Nice. What movie are you gonna watch?
I'm a big movie nerd, and my girlfriend is very much not a movie nerd, so I tend to find movies that I either know or do not know, and then we go into them, and in this case it's gonna be Slumdog Millionaire. That Danny Boyle classic, I would almost call it now. So yeah, we're gonna watch that one. I haven't watched it in years, and she's never watched it, so we're gonna check that one out.
What's some of your favorite genres of movies? What's like the stuff that you go into when you don't even know what you want to watch?
Oh, you mean if I'm like looking for a specific genre when I
you like
movie searching?
Yeah, what's your favorite stuff? What's your favorite genre, man?
I really, really enjoy like science fiction, but okay, so which kind of science fiction? I like what they call like dubbed it as science nonfiction. Like movies that are technically science fiction, but they're nonfiction in the sense that they could potentially happen in a way. So that more like realistic types, like the movie Arrival. With what's her name? I forgot the name now. But the Arrival movie that came out like 4 or 5 years ago. Loved that one. I love Alien and Aliens, the two first Ridley Scott and James Cameron classics. Loved Terminator. It's great as well. Predator, that type of stuff. But I also like more I would say more complex movies that make you think.
Right.
Specifically, there's like a gem from. I don't even know when it's like from 2010 or before, called Cube, like a Canadian movie.
Okay.
It's like, I don't know if you heard about that one. It's like super low budget. It's like these people, they wake up in these, rooms, cube shaped as a room normally is. And there's like portals or doors on the attic, the ceiling, and all four sides. and there's like traps in the rooms, and they don't know how they got in there. We're never told how they got in there either. So Super's like, what is going on? But very interesting all the way through. Super low budget movie, but great.
Yeah, like the crazier this world gets, some of these science fiction movies become realer and realer as time goes on.
Oh yeah, Black Mirror, for example, a Sublime series from is it Netflix? The Black Mirror series,
Yeah,
which is creepy, because that's like proper science nonfiction. Because a lot of it could probably happen with the, especially you remember the social credit score, which is already present in China right now.
yeah.
So, which is like, what? What is this? It's 1984 or something.
Right,
You
like
know the story. Yeah.
like the shit that like scares me the most, like it actually goes back to like science fiction books, is all the stuff that Octavia Butler wrote, like Parable of the Sower and stuff like that. Like if you ever read those
I don't know that.
books,
I don't know that. What
well,
are they
if you
about?
ever read those books, they'll scare the shit out of you because it's like, oh, okay, this could happen. and,
Oh yeah.
and it was supposed to be like science fiction, and Octavia Butler was like the first black science fiction writer,
Uh-huh.
and to like ever become popular or anything. And like I still think about things from that, from those books. I read one. I read a Parable of the Sower. I got through like half of it, and I had to stop and like gather myself, and to read the rest of
Wow.
it, because I was like, man, like this could happen, man, and it's just crazy.
Can you give like a brief summary of what it is
um
about?
all through it's like all through the United States, things just kind of went downhill. There's these people who are just really high off of like some sort of drug, and they set arson, like they set fires and stuff. So like all the people who actually can afford to, they have to like protect their community, and they have like high fences, and they have to have security guards. But you also have to, if you want the police's help, you have to pay for the police, like a
Oh,
service.
really?
And
Okay.
people,
Okay, I never thought about that.
yeah, and there's a lot of things where and then a lot of people are trying to move into places that have like less rules, and the only people that can have any sort of safety are the rich. So it's like it's so
It,
like crazy.
it sounds a lot like the world right now,
Yeah, but it's
in the
amped
US at
like it's
least.
like amped up like a thousand
Yeah, amped up.
percent, and you're like, I don't want to go outside.
Well, we're used to not going outside the past 13 months, aren't we? So,
Right, right.
well, this whole thing like stay home and be afraid, and oh my God, like I don't let that stuff get to me though. I have not been afraid in this time at all. I'm also not elderly or fragile in that sense. So, but both two of the guys from my band have actually had COVID. So, one of them, the drummer, he said he felt like he just got a week off. He didn't feel anything at all. And the other guy, the guitarist, he felt pretty bad. He's like rehabilitating his sense of smell
Yeah.
and taste right now. He says the way he explained it was, he told me like, if I'm drinking a beer or something, trying to enjoy a good beer, it's like it tastes like a beer, but it doesn't taste like a beer. I remember what it's supposed to taste like, but it tastes like something else, something like that. That's how he explained it,
Right.
which is like, what? So strange. He got like a small kit from the doctors with these four small glass containers with like some super pungent, like there's a cinnamon one and some other types of, in that vein, really pungent
Yeah.
smells, which is supposed to rehabilitate, the nerve endings between his sense of smell and taste in his brain or something. It's like, what? All of that from a damn virus that's supposed to be like a flu or something? Like what? Well, I mean, yeah, this
Crazy,
is where we
man.
are now.
Yeah, it's crazy like the effects that, this virus had on people. It's different for everybody.
Yeah. Where are you at? Where are you located at?
I'm in the States. I'm in Detroit, Michigan.
Mm. Oh, Detroit. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was thinking like, because I've been speaking to at least two others during this interview run. They were in New York City. I've been hearing a lot about that, and it was pretty bad there. And a lot of the lockdown was like really locked down. I don't know if it's been like that
in Michigan. At the beginning of the pandemic, I felt like our officials were doing a good job with locking people down and everything, but then crazy militant dudes like stormed the Capitol, and then also here in Michigan they stormed the Capitol and they had plans to kidnap and murder the governor. So and
that's like a coup.
Yeah, and then after that, after a while, some of even though she was doing a good job, Governor Whitmer, shout out, she was doing a good job of keeping the cases down. She got stripped of a lot of powers to be able to regulate things like that, and our COVID cases have gone through the roof the past couple months, and now we're like the leader in COVID cases in the in the U.S. So yeah, it's so nuts, but I got my first vaccine just a couple of days ago. When we're recording this, so I'm excited to get the second one, but it's kind of nuts here. But at the same time, they're slowly starting to open up more stuff, so it's just the
economy is kind of like bleeding and suffering pretty much, right? We need exchange of services, how to to keep this model we have.
But at the same time, it's we don't got enough workers to keep some things open. The post office will just close at random times because they don't have someone to work a shift or whatever.
That's interesting because I work at a company. I do customer service for a company, and I'm in touch with the U.S. a lot, with specifically FedEx, and there's been a lot of trouble. Maybe that explains something. The trouble FedEx is having sometimes because
especially the delivery services. They have there's a lot. They're having trouble with staffing. So it's that's kind of crazy. But then a lot of other professions just have problems with staffing and stuff because there's still a lot of people sick and whatnot, and
of course, that's the whole essence of the lockdown, right?
It's crazy.
Make sure that people don't get too sick, because if they're sick, they can't work. So
but
if they're continuously sick, then who's gonna run everything?
But then again, here in the States, they've never thought that way to begin with. You're all if you can drag your bones to work, then you can go to work. So
I think it's like that most places actually. It's I'm not at my workplace is very, very nice actually, and they're like, are you sick? Even before the pandemic, it's like, are you sick? Yeah, I have a headache. Go home.
Right.
Don't worry, you'll get your money. Just go home. Very nice. Very spoiled.
That is very spoiled.
they it is, right. Welcome to Denmark. We're very spoiled in Denmark. But it's they take good care of their employees. And they just gave us one more week of vacation, even paid vacation, on top of what we're already supposed to have according to the law or whatever and stuff in Denmark. So very, very nice.
So
more tours probably.
Right.
Got to spend it on a tour.
So after having some very good acclaim for the last album, Apple of Discord, what were you guys sort of going into with making Comatose, and how did that really go during this pandemic?
I mean, we actually started writing way before the pandemic. It's always, an ongoing process. Even now, we're still already gearing up for, the next. We're always ahead of schedule in that way. We're always preparing for the next release because, especially in these times with no shows, you have to really stay on top.
Yeah, and a lot of metalcore bands and stuff like that. They kind of put out albums on a frequency. You guys have been doing it every 2 years,
Yeah.
And a lot of metal bands
month,
do
actually,
that,
Yeah.
It's you'll look at the discography and it'll be two, between albums, there's that frequency.
Very much. It's been completely like that almost to the month. This time is actually the first time we've not released in February. It's been February 15, 17, and 19. And this time around, I'm not even kidding. That's, if you go back and check out the dates,
Right.
not the exact same date, but the same month to the month. So, but this time it's going to be May. But yeah, your question was again? Sorry.
Or, what did you like going into making this album? What was sort of like the mood of the band and whatnot? Like, what did you want to, you got so much good acclaim from the last album. What did you want to, build upon from that?
Oh yeah, like that. I mean, in the writing Comatose, we had the mindset of we wanted to make something that was more, I guess, palatable, more simplified riffs. Like less is more kind of thing. More simple riffs, more hardcore inspired riffs. So it would also go over even better live. So it's not so much noodling on the guitar, which we've had some of before, which we still have a little bit, but not so much at all though. So we wanted to make more live friendly music as well.
Yeah.
So we could really pack a punch and mosh pits and kicking ass and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's mostly the mentality. But otherwise, when we write, it's mostly what we also, if it's good, it's good. We don't care if it has got like some weird ass element. We're still like, yeah, still cool. Sounds good. So let's use that. We usually write like around double the amount of songs we're going to release. So if we're intending to write an album with 10 songs, we actually do 20, and we like handpick the 10 best. So
do you go back to any of those ones that you don't use for like the next record?
Sometimes there's always like the odd riff where it's like, yeah, this song as a whole is not particularly good, being honest.
But there's those elements of it that are like really dope, and you're like,
yeah,
let's break apart this thing and make it something new.
We've done that not a lot of times, but we've definitely done it before. Because if a riff is good and the song around the structure around it is not the best, then you can still like don't throw that away.
Yeah.
At least recycle, use it.
Yeah, you still have a hot riff.
If it's good, it's good, right? Yeah, exactly.
No, what's crazy is on this new album, man. There's like sound effects or whatever that you guys have on this record that sound like shit in my apartment. Like on Paper Tiger, there's this sound that sounds exactly like my apartment ringer. And literally the first two times I listened to it, I jumped out to go answer my ringer. And I was like, wait a minute.
I know exactly what you mean. It's like, yeah, but what is it? Now that I think back, I'm gonna say like it's a sample of somebody screaming or something, and then we did something weird digital on top of that. But it's like that really high pitched.
Yeah.
If you listen to it on headphones, it goes from one to the other, like like if you're driving past somebody, like that kind of thing, right?
No, actually, it's something else, but it's hard to describe it. But it sounds like my apartment ringer. So the first two times I heard it, I went and answered my ringer to see if there was someone at the door, and I was just like, oh shoot, that was in the song, man. And it still gets me though. I know it's there, and I'm like, it still gets me.
Not on purpose.
Or maybe I love it. I love it. That's one thing I love about this album. I'm like, there's all these like, and you're saying these like little weird little nuances about it, little sound effects, but at the same time, everything is so simple that you can kind of really grab onto everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we I mean, all those extra details, they're added at the end. Because first is like guitars, drums, bass, and vocals, and then we sit around for a few days afterwards, like to round it up. We've done that on all the albums, and they were like listening through them again and again, like all guys in the band, the producer, even maybe like a friend or two or something, sitting around listening, and then we're like, oh, okay, and then he pulls up stuff, all his weird samples and all that, and we try to play around. It's really fun. It's a lot of fun to do. And you end up with something that sounds like your ringer in your home.
Right.
Yeah.
When you're starting to make an album like Comatose, like what is sort of like the first things you guys do? Who brings what to the table?
Well, it's all like exclusively. I was about to say. I mean, it's always been ever since the beginning. Niklas, the guitarist, he writes the riffs. He's like the main songwriter. He's the sometimes too many cooks in the kitchen doesn't always work. Sometimes it does, but he writes the riffs, and then he programs some like simplistic drums, just to have like a reference, and then Sebastian, the drummer, he programs some proper drums, like what he would want it to be, what he feel like he could play, and whatever, he put his touch on it. And then Niklas and I, we sit down with the lyrics that I've written, completely independent of the music. It's just been, what came to mind and what I was feeling that day, or a thought, whatever. And then we sit down and we write like flows and melodies and all that for the instrumentals that those two guys made. So that's always how we've done it. Actually, we just sit down with like a computer, like a laptop, in the rehearsal space with the crappy mic that's built in. That of course you're listening through this lovely customer service headset that I've got on.
Yeah.
sounds way better, but the built-in microphone, and then we just sit with like a basic audio program and have the tracks, and we just record into the microphone. Just like we don't even like do the proper screams or anything. We just do like a spoken word or like a melody. We sing it in falsetto, like really softly, the melodies we want, and then later on we record demos, and then we take it to the studio. That's how we do it.
So you just get the idea down like in your own like sort of comfortable space.
Yeah, it's a reference, for what we're gonna do, so we can remember it, because otherwise it would just like go away probably.
When you're just sitting down writing lyrics, what are you referencing? Just like, is there like a simple like just metalcore beat that you're going through, or are you just like putting words down to a paper?
I have to say, a lot of times I'm probably listening to some sort of music. I don't necessarily register what I am listening to, but it's more like a vibe or a feel. And then I've been watching, I guess, some videos during the day, and I have a thought about, because how many thoughts pass through our heads in a day? Is like thousands, right? And then I just, it's not necessarily dependent on the music, but it's just like the vibe and the thought, and then it becomes like words in some strange way.
How much of a change does it go from like those words that you write by yourself to like when you're sitting down and kind of like figuring out those melodies?
It actually stays not 100% the same, because sometimes it's like a weird phonetic thing with the words, and it doesn't really fit, and blah blah blah, all these things, and then we change the word, like use synonyms and all that. But the overall message is still retained 100%. So it's not too bad.
So by now, like when you're writing, you kind of have like a rhythm in your head about how to write without having actual music there to reference it to. Yeah.
So the lyrics are always just written, and then later on I will have the music, and then I can take all that and make it work to the music. That's our way of doing it. I'm guessing. I mean, other bands probably do it other ways, but I don't think I could do it any other way.
That's your way, man. It's your way, and it works, baby.
Yeah, we've always been doing. Yeah, we've always been doing. I mean, apparently it works. Here we are. We're talking from the other side of the world, so I guess it's working.
Yeah, man. People love your records, man. So it's working.
Thank you.
Where do you, when you're writing, where do you pull from for ideas and stuff like that? Like what is like the songs on Comatose about?
It's a lot about, I mean, comatose, that word in itself, you're in a coma. It's like I feel like I'm not anti-vaxxer, I'm not anti-mask or anything, but I also feel like nothing is above scrutiny, right?
Right.
Everything deserves to be scrutinized, even kings, queens, presidents, and leaders of tribes or whatever. Nobody's above scrutinies, and I feel like people need to question what they see and consider what they're told. Like, don't take anything for granted. Of course, I mean, depends on what the subject is, but in more serious subject matters, I think you should always think it through and don't just believe what you hear. Always do your research before you latch on to something.
Right.
And also within a lot of movements, I feel like, like it can quickly become an echo chamber. I even know like a more innocent example, or not silly, but more, innocent example is like, let's say we're sitting, the four guys and Ghost Stars, we're sitting in the rehearsal space, and one of the guys say, "Oh, dude, have you heard the new The Artist Murderer or something? Their new album?" And they're like, and then the next one says, "Yeah, it's great," and I'm like, and then the third person said, "Yeah, it's great," and then I'm sitting there, but I don't in my heart, I'm not the hugest fan. Whatever, music is subjective. But then I feel like, okay, now it's like peer pressure. It's like an echo chamber. Everybody likes it, and we're pack animals. It's a pack mentality. So I should probably just go along and say that I like it as well.
Yeah, so you don't have to deal with that conflict, and there's like sometimes you got to pick your battles and stuff like that. That's what's happening these days, is that there's like that absolute matter. Like if someone says like if you don't agree with someone, it's either you agree with me or not, And there's only like a few things where it's just like, okay, we can.
Yeah.
If you disagree with me on this shit, then get the fuck out of here. But other things, but a lot of things can, like you say, be scrutinized and everything, and it should be. Even if you have even if like you're 99% sure about your whatever and believe what everybody's saying and whatnot, and believe that everybody's telling you the truth on that, it can still be scrutinized, because
of course,
like, to me, that's like, it's always a learning experience. You might not know something. There might be something you don't know about in that particular topic, whether good or bad, that you might learn. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of knowledge out there.
There is, and like you say, it's like a learning curve, and you learn every day of your life, right? Even on your deathbed, you probably still don't know everything at all, but at least you've become way smarter than you were when you were like a teenager or something, right?
But there's a lot of people too that like they don't like change, and they don't like learning stuff, and they don't like the research, and they like kind of take whatever's kind of spoon fed to them, and that's what like powerful people want, is that people will just accept these things, and looking back when you were growing up, and maybe it's the same for you, you think about all the things that were like where people will say, well, that's just how it is. And you look back and you're like, yo, them people are mad cowards, yo. Like when you think about some messed up shit that like that's just how it is, you're like, wow, that's a cowardly position to take. Yeah. So I'm glad like just for me and other people that, that there's like accountability, starting to happen in regards to things. And like you said, things can be scrutinized, but it's when those people that are like, it's either this or that, that kind of like mess up things.
For sure. It's but also what we're like you said with if you're talking to somebody and you don't necessarily agree on something, there's some like really edge things that you probably, if you can't agree on it, you probably shouldn't talk. You probably should just go your separate ways. Or there are more innocent things like music, like oh, you don't like Metallica? I fucking love Metallica. I can't talk to you ever. Or the generic Slayer fan. You don't like Slayer? Fucking Slayer's life, bro. Yeah, and then it's like
sometimes you gotta like
it never did much for me. You know what I mean? And then they're like, I can't talk to you ever. Like, grow up,
Like sometimes you gotta like read their body language to see if this is an argument that you want to get into. Like, is it important enough to me to get into this argument? Is this person going to give me shit for saying that I don't like Iron Maiden or something like that? Yeah. Like, I
know they're like the legends and classic and everything, but whatever, man. Music is subjective.
Yeah, it's like
I don't want to have a discussion about
it. It's not for me, man. Nobody's like, no one's ever strong. No one's ever forced me to like anything, and they ain't going to start now, man. And
there's no end result with music. It's not like 2 + 2 is 4. That's just fact. That's math. That's music is. It's like fairy dust,
It's like and for me, man, there's a lot of stuff that I love that gets hated on a lot, and I'm like, it's the same thing. I'm just like, yo, baby, I love that shit. I don't care.
I have to admit though, I have personally, I do have guilty pleasures. I realize that some music that I listen to, like, this is pretty bad. I actually get that, but. Man, I love it.
Wait, what's your guilty? Okay, first off, I don't believe in guilty pleasures because I like take all responsibility for anything that I love, and I will say I love them. But what's a guilty pleasure of yours?
First, before I answer, I know what you mean, but I can see, like, objectively, I could see why some people would say this is pretty.
I know, I understand. No,
mediocre.
I totally understand that too.
And silly specifically. I understand why people think Attila is silly, for example. The
Yeah.
party deathcore band, whatever you would
Right.
call them, like southern. They got like a southern twang to them as well,
Yeah.
like a bluesy rock and roll weird
And
thing
like
going on top as well. But
trap
it's like
rap sort of thing.
yeah,
Like, yeah, it's
trap and
crazy.
rap, and the lyrics are, I mean,
Are ridiculously
horrendous.
stupid.
They're so crappy. It's like
Awful.
see how many fucks you could put in there. I know it's stupid, but I think it's the whole feeling around it. It's like a party thing. It's like,
Oh, and
yeah,
I understand why
shut
people
up.
love that, you know? And
Yeah,
there's been times when
people want to have fun.
I've seen them live, I've listened to the records,
me
and
too.
I'm like, yo, if they're on stage, I'm partying, man.
Yeah.
I might not put them in my top 10 or anything, bands of the year or whatever, but if they're on
No.
stage, I might stick around and party.
Yeah, I mean, I watched them, in Denmark some years ago, and it was great. It was fun, and you could see everybody was having a great time. Everybody was having fun. You could just see it on their face, moshing and everything. It was great. But I realized that they're, it's not like poetic, like Shakespeare level type of lyrics, and I mean, they can play and everything. And
Yeah.
Chris Fronzak, he's actually a very good vocalist. Uh, Depending on, I mean, no matter if you like the fact that he uses OnlyFans and he's making a lot of money on OnlyFans and all this other
There's
stuff that he
always
does.
those bands where people kind of make fun of them, but if you go and break down like the musicians in the band, there's like incredible musicians. Like Winger was like a band like that. Like the '80s band Winger.
I don't think I know them.
Oh yeah, this
But
is
okay.
okay. Winger they had this song called 17, which now is kind of problematic. She's
Okay.
only 17, you know. But and they were kind of corny when you listen to the music, but like their drummer, their guitarist and everything are incredible like musicians. Like
Yeah.
there's stuff like that that's all you always have those bands where it's just like, yo,
Yeah.
this shit's kind of dumb, but if you actually break it down, like they got like there's things in that band, whatever, that are very high quality, very, very incredible, you know?
Yeah.
And
But it's also, I think, oftentimes the breaking point is the lyrics.
yeah,
Because lyrics can make or break it, right? Because you can do like super serious music and then throw some ridiculous, like like Steel Panther type
yeah.
stuff. I mean, their music is kind of silly because it's like all copied from '80s bands, but it's fun.
Yeah, that's their
Fun.
shtick, you know. They're like
Yeah,
they're
that's
not
their shtick,
they're
yeah.
not trying to be like they're not trying to
No, no.
be take that seriously. They're there that for what it is.
It's a comedic type.
Yeah,
of thing.
it's like
Yeah.
entertainment. Like it's
Yeah.
it's like a gimmick. It's entertainment.
But like I agree. But like like when you have super serious music and they throw on top of it like super ridiculous, silly lyrics, that can like make or break it, I guess. And make
Yeah,
it
there's
go from
sometimes
being-
when
yeah.
you'll hear those like those like really super serious like metal bands or like symphonic metal bands or whatever, and they'll
Yeah.
like and you're like, yo, this is kind of cool, but then you start listening to your lyrics and you're like, yeah, this is kind of corny, man. What? I don't know what's
And
going
I
on.
mean, all respect to the people who can write the corny lyrics. I don't think I could take myself seriously if I tried to do it.
But I
don't think I
I
could.
think when it comes into metal, dude, there's so many like people kind of joke about all like the subgenres of metal and stuff like
Yeah,
that. But as for me, coming from like a hip hop background, the problem with hip hop is that hip hop and rap are all under the same umbrella a lot of times. So it leads to a lot of confusion about what you are, who your fan base is, who to go after. Just in discussions, I can be like, "Yo, I like hip hop," and to me that means like Wu-Tang Clan and Mobb Deep. But then you ask the same person that, and it's like Drake, and it's like two different types of music, you know.
Oh yeah.
So that's why I like in metal and stuff like that there is these subgenres and stuff like that, because you can at least, understand the type of people that are going to like that stuff, and you might like a lot of different stuff. You might be a fan of a lot of those genres, but you can, at least understand why they like them, that's why like
Yeah.
you'll never have like Attila and Iron Maiden doing a show together, because they make two different types of heavy
Yeah.
music,
Metal, yeah. Two very different types of metal, yeah, for sure they do. But it's funny you say you're have a hip hop background. Actually, when I think back it's really really funny. I'll tell a short story
Go
how I
ahead.
got into rock metal stuff.
Oh, I was gonna
It
ask
was
you that anyways, man. So like,
oh,
yeah,
you
like,
are? Oh,
I
great,
was gonna
great.
ask you how you got into music anyway. So like, yeah, this
Yeah,
is perfect. Yeah, tell your hip hop story.
I'll tell my hip hop and metal story actually. I remember I must have been 11 or 12. I'm gonna say something around there. And in school there was a kid that he was Iranian. I don't recall if he was a fugitive or if his parents came to Denmark for work, whatever. A great Iranian kid, and he came to school. He barely spoke Danish. He was starting to learn it and all that, and he was wearing a Metallica T-shirt. I believe it was the Reload album because that fits. It was around 97,
Yeah,
96. They released Load and Reload, I believe it was. So
yeah,
it
it's around
fits.
now. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and he was wearing that T-shirt. I thought, oh, like what is? I found out later what the artwork is supposed to be. It's like semen kind of thing. I thought it was fire. It looked like fire to me. So I was like, whoa, it's Metallica fire, and I found out it was semen later on. Great. I was 12 years old. What do you expect? But I like, he was wearing that one day, super colorful T-shirt, black with very colorful printing on it, and then the other day, he was wearing a Tupac T-shirt. I believe the one where he's sitting hunched over a chair and doing the West Side
Yeah, all
sign.
eyes on
Is it
me.
all
Yeah.
exactly? That's the one. Exactly. So he was wearing those, and it's probably something I make up in my mind, but I feel like he was wearing those like every other day, only those two T-shirts all the time.
That was like me in
Top,
middle school, man. That was me at
or,
my at that age.
but it's actually when I think about it, it's we listened to. I was like, I approached him and all that, kids and boys having fun and all that. And I said to him, like, those T-shirts, like, what is that? I already kind of knew it was music, but still, he's like, yeah, listen. We had like a CD player in the back of the classroom that everybody wanted to be on all the time. So like, I have my CD, and now we're gonna listen to this music in the breaks and all that. But then he put on Metallica, and we heard listen to Tupac, and actually Bone Thugs and Harmony.
Yeah,
If you remember them, yeah, we
yeah.
used to listen to them a lot too. He actually gave me their CD. He had the CD and he gave it to me. But it's really interesting to think about it. It's like this kid that barely spoke Danish at that time, where you starting to learn it and all that. I can actually attribute to him the fact that I started to listen to heavy metal, heavy rock, whatever, and pretty hardcore rap as well. It's like they're
Nice.
definitely dropping the F bomb more than once during a song, like all those acts and Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and all the start 90s stuff. I got into that later on.
Right, right.
But it's funny because it was like two parallel lines that were going following me. Rap on the one side and metal on the other side.
Yeah.
And still to this day I have to admit I do listen mostly to rock and guitar, bass, drums type music, but I do listen to hip hop. I just go back to older stuff. I'm not the biggest fan of no newer stuff. I think his name Hobson.
Yeah.
Hobson guy. He's pretty creative. I think
Oh yeah,
uh,
yeah.
he's one of the newer ones that I actually like. So
What's some of your favorite hip hop albums from back in the day?
the Art of War, the Bone Thugs and Harmony album.
Okay.
That one is still I still look it up on Spotify every once in a while, but also Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style, that
Yeah.
album, because I remember listening to that album like I was a kid.
Yeah, me
Like
too.
kids shouldn't be listening to that stuff. It's like it's some pretty hardcore stuff and pretty degrading towards women as well, and all that stuff. But
Right.
yeah, it's art, but still. Um, that one and Tupac's All Eyes on Me as well.
Yeah.
That one and Dr. Dre's Chronic 2001.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
one. That's like probably the one I've listened to the most.
Yeah.
I went to the library back when you went to the library in Denmark and loaned the CDs. They were in these weird, not in the cover, but they were in these weird plastic pockets
Yeah,
thing with
we do that here too.
yeah.
Like in,
Yeah, you did that. Okay, great.
yeah.
I thought it was like, well, we just did that here, but yeah. Well, I found that, and I found that 30 Seconds to Mars, their very first album, like the one that nobody knows. Everybody knows The Beautiful Lie and onwards,
Yeah.
but before that, they made like a self-titled, which was more like space rock kind of thing, way more heavier guitars, and I found that there as well. And Papa Roach and Limp Bizkit and all that stuff started coming in as well, and so yeah, that's well, the hip hop albums there. hope you got your answer on that.
Right. So, you kind of have like these two influences with, hip hop and rock at a, early age. When did you start getting interested in making music? What was sort of like the cultural backdrop in your homeland at the time? How did you, first get started into making music?
Well, I started listening to all that music, like I said, in 97 when I was 12 years old. But then it would be way later, like 8 years later, when I started in not high school, but like, something equivalent. But I started on it late because I dropped out and I wanted to work for some years to make some money. And then I like went back into it. So I was like 19 or 20 or something. But I remember there was the first day of school. There was this guy called Asbjørn, very Nordic name, Asbjørn. He was the son of two like ministers, priests. Like both his mom and his father was church folk, and him and I we had a good time. We talked to each other and we talked about music a lot. He loved music as well. And he mentioned the bands that he liked, and I mentioned the bands that I like. And apparently, he was had like a keen eye or ear or whatever. He noticed the names of the bands that I mentioned, and he had two other friends that were on the second year of this school thing, who listened to exactly those bands that I mentioned. And he noticed that, and he went over to those two guys. Hey, I know you two guys. Weren't you looking for somebody to sing in your band? Yeah. And then they approached me in one of the lunch hour or whatever. And they're like, "Hey Jesper, Asbjørn told us that you like Killswitch Engage. Told us you liked As Lay Dying and stuff like that, back then." And said, "Yeah, like, what's up, guys? You like them too? Nice and everything." And then they're like, "We want you to sing in our band." I was like the deer in the headlights. Like, I don't know how to play anything at all, let alone sing. I don't know how to do that. Nah, man, you can learn that shit.
Right, I was about to ask. I'm like, wait a minute. When did you first realize you could sing?
Well, I didn't realize at all because I couldn't. It just came over time, pretty much. But it's just I still remember, like those words are printed in my mind. Like, yeah, but you can learn that. You can learn it. And they're like, yeah, you're right. I mean, if you really want to do something, yeah, you can learn it. Just try, and if you really want it, you will learn it one day, which I did.
Wow, those were some like really cool guys, man. Just be like, yo, just learn it.
That's what they said. And I was like, yeah, I feel kind of lonely in this school. Two new good friends, and we have something to come together around in the form of music, and they're pretty good players as well. So I don't know. I haven't talked to them for some time, but they also went on later on playing other bands, stuff like that. Pretty good people and musicians. Yeah. So yeah, that's how I got into that. No classical training, no musicians in my immediate family at all. My uncle, he dabbled with some acoustic guitar every once in a while, but that's it. Not much at all. So, yeah, that's just how it happened.
So now, like you're going into your 20s, you're starting to learn how to be a vocalist. What's it like in Denmark to be a music artist? What's the concert scene like? What's the small show scene look like? What do bands that sound like you do in Denmark at the time?
Oh, back then actually in my hometown, I live in the capital city now, Copenhagen. But back then I lived in my hometown called Fredericia. Try to pronounce that. When you're not a Danish speaker, nobody can pronounce that now. But it had a very good hardcore scene actually back then. We even had something called Fredericia Hardcore Festival, which at one point actually about 5,000 or 6,000 people attended it.
Nice.
In this obscure small town of like 40,000 people in a small country somewhere in Europe. But yeah, it had a lot of great bands, and the scene was actually very good. And that was around the time when I was coming out with my band's music and all that. But in the scene in general in Denmark is, we play a niche type of music in a very small country. So the fewer in the population, the there's that much fewer to listen to your music, and when you do niche music, there's even fewer. You know what I mean?
Right.
We're like 5-6 million, and you in the US, you're 320 million. So there's a bigger chance of you getting some traction and all that because there's so many people.
Right.
But Denmark is so very tiny. You could drive from one end to the other in like less than 5 hours. You know, that's it. So the scene is pretty minimal here, but there have been a lot of great shows though. It's there's been a lot of really good shows, especially in those days in the hardcore festival thing in my hometown. There was some serious moshing and crowd killing type of stuff going on, and I it was there's crowd surfing, but I in my younger days I was a witness to what I dubbed later on crowd running or crowd walking. It's like
Oh,
literally people like running out from the top of the stage, like on people's heads or shoulders, and then
right.
falling down into the. It's like insane stuff. I kind of miss it, especially now with all this crap going on now that live shows are not happening. So I miss the live shows in general. Yeah.
No, I feel you. I feel you, man. How did how did Ghost Iris come about? Why did this band form?
It was in 2011. I had a girlfriend in Copenhagen, and while I was living in my hometown, but I was like, I'm gonna move to Copenhagen now, and some dudes over here they got wind of it, through the grapevine. They got a wind of that. Oh, Jesper is moving here, and he quit his old band because they stayed in his own hometown, and he wanted to go on to newer and better things and whatever. So they approached me once again. Two guys approached me. One of them was Niklas, the guy who I'm still with in Ghost Stars. When we started a band called Shaped Like Swans. But that one lasted for about a year, and then the two other members in the band, they wanted to do other things, which they did, but those failed as well now. But Nicholas and I, we stuck together, and we found Sebastian on our drummer on a message board, like a local message board thing where people are talking about metal and stuff in
Yeah.
our very small country. And then it just took off from there, and we've had a few other members, but we landed on our final member, Daniel, on the guitar. So that's how that happened pretty much. Just because I moved to Copenhagen actually, so they latched on to me there.
Thinking about those early days when you finally different members, whatnots, kind of solidifying everything. How's the band different then than how they are now? How do you feel like you've grown? With the release of this album, Comatose.
It's funny that you like talk about like how we've grown, because yesterday we had rehearsals yesterday, and it was Nicholas, Sebastian, and I. Daniel is doing some school stuff. He was doing some school stuff, and but we were sitting outside, because it's super hot, and then after we played the 50-minute set, and we had to go out and get some air. The weather is getting better. We were sitting there talking about the old days and all that, and the fact that like, back then we just thought we were the shit. We thought we were so good, and now that we look back, like. Yeah, we were not good at all. We were actually pretty subpar at that point, but we stuck with it, and we've gotten way better over time. So the way I can say it is that, like, as musicians, but also as people, and we've gotten older, and we're not as full of ourselves as we were back then. Admittedly, we were. We remember the very first show we played. I had actually forgotten this. I thought the first show we played was like at a proper venue. But the first one we actually played was when we invited, just girlfriends, friends, nearest family, I guess, and we had a pretty big rehearsal space at that point, like a rehearsal space show during the summer when it was insanely hot in there, and we played so many songs, like like we overstayed our welcome almost. Like, guys, why are you playing all these half-finished songs? Why, like, are you soon done so we can go out and get some fucking beers? I just remember the feeling. I just remember, like, we thought we were the shit. We really. It was a nice feeling though, Like, it wasn't hurting anybody. We just, we had a good time, and we felt like we were really good. I mean, we were all right, but we're way better now, luckily. I mean, that's how it's supposed to go, right? It's supposed to get better, at least.
Oh yeah.
Progression, not regression, right?
Like, do you feel like it's helped the band as a whole to like kind of mellow out, I guess you'd say, from, those early years thinking you're like, we're the shit, this is crazy,
Yeah.
to like sort of like mellowing out. Like, how do you feel like that's helped the band?
I mean, I think it's made us more focused with our songwriting and our music in general because back then, it's a little bit superficial here and there. It's like, oh, guys, we're gonna do synchronized headbanging. We were thinking about it that way too much. Whereas now, because we're more experienced, yeah, like I'm thinking like attack, some crapcore type stuff. All those moves, if you remember all that stuff.
Yeah.
But but yeah, we don't think about that much anymore because we've become more experienced and all that stuff. It just comes natural. You just do what you want if it feels right on stage and all that. So. Yeah, it's made us better musicians. We've found out that it's, superficial stuff does not really matter. Like the music is what really matters. That's what we come together for, and we practice a lot. We practice a lot to like refine and make our craft as good as it can get. Yeah.
All right, before we get out of here, do you have any final thoughts about, this new album, Comatose? What do you, hope your fans get out of this?
I hope they become pissed in a way that they will stand up for their rights and not be mindless consumer zombies. And like I said in the very beginning of this talk we're having, I said that don't take everything for granted. Take with a grain of salt. Like think about what you're told and don't take everything as what do you say don't believe everything you hear, right?
Yeah.
So I hope it can be like an anthem for people, even people in their everyday if they have a job that they hate or if something is going not so well in their life,
Right.
Take it with you and let all those negative emotions flow out through the music and get them out of your body because otherwise you will implode. Get it out of your system, Go listen to music, go work out, go have a run. Do anything, but do everything else than sitting in your home just because your government tells you to. Go out and become pissed. That's what I want people to get out of it.
Perfect. It's been good talking with you, Jesper. Like before we you get out of here, where can people go online to get more information about Ghost Iris and their new album, Comatose?
We're very much an Instagram band. Our website is not up yet, but we have to get on that. But on our Instagram, Ghost Iris DK, Instagram at Ghost Iris DK, you can go in and we have our in the bio. That's the only link that you fill in there. We have a link tree in there, which is like links to everything. That's Ghost Iris. So we're also on YouTube and of course all the streaming platforms that you can think of. We're also represented on those. So go check them out and check out Comatose.
Thank you for listening to the Fresh is the Word podcast, hosted and produced by myself, Kelly K. Fresh Frazier, empowered by Anchor at anchor.fm/Fresh is the Word. Fresh is the Word theme music provided by Steve O. You can find more of his productions at iamsteveo.bandcamp.com, and that's EYEAMSTEVEO.bandcamp.com. Fresh is the Word is available on all major streaming platforms. Please rate and review on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher. If you want to support Fresh is the Word, please consider pledging via Patreon at patreon.com/freshistheword. Follow Fresh is the Word on social media on Twitter at Fresh is the Pod, on Instagram at Fresh is the Word Podcast, and join the Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Fresh is the Word. For more information about Fresh is the Word and our other podcasts, Breaking Records and Renaissance Soul, and a collection of pop culture articles and reviews, please visit freshesthepodcast.com. Thank you for listening and your support. Goodbye and good night.
Fresh is the word.